In the summer of 1940, at the Royal Air Force's Hornchurch Airfield in Essex, two Supermarine Spitfires, seemingly identical, rested upon the concrete tarmac. Both aircraft were powered by the same formidable Merlin engine, equipped with an identical 8-gun armament, and had the same pilot, squadron leader Desmond Cook, positioned within the confines of their respective cockpits. Squadron leader Cook then advanced the throttle of the first aircraft. Its distance required for liftoff spanned 320 yards. The ascension to an altitude of 20,000 feet took 11 minutes and 8 seconds. Its operational altitude limit, where the atmospheric air grew thin and the power plants struggled for oxygen, was registered at 32,000 feet. Approximately 20 minutes later, Cook took his position within the second Spitfire. This aircraft possessed an indistinguishable fuselage and wing structure, an identical engine, yet was equipped with a distinct propeller mechanism. Its distance required for liftoff was a mere 225 yards. The ascension to 20,000 feet was achieved in a remarkable 7 minutes and 42 seconds. Its operational altitude limit soared to 39,000 feet. The same plane, the same engine, with the conflict's outcome teetering precariously, demonstrated a stark difference. The margin between triumph and defeat in the pivotal Battle of Britain ultimately hinged upon 3 swiftly rotating aluminum blades, a component that aeronautical specialists across America had previously categorized as unfeasible due to its intricate nature. We ask you to stay with us and watch the end of the video. We will be grateful for your like and subscription. Write a comment about where you are from and what you think about the video topic. This revolutionary propeller concept, once deemed unachievable, conceived by Frank Caldwell, and predicted to enable U.S. bombers to fly 100 MPH faster, had just demonstrated its profound capabilities over the pastoral English countryside. However, the compelling narrative of how one resolute engineer's empirical data overturned the entrenched beliefs of an entire sector commences 8 years prior, within the confines of a manufacturing facility where his innovative proposition was universally deemed impractical. On a bleak February morning in 1932, Frank Walker Caldwell stood within the grimy proving ground of Hamilton Standard Propeller Corporation in East Hartford, Connecticut. At 43 years of age, the MIT-trained mechanical engineer exhibited the systematic demeanor of a man who placed unwavering faith in quantitative evidence rather than subjective viewpoints. Wire-rimmed spectacles rested accurately on his nose, and a clipboard was never far from his work-hardened hands. Behind him, mounted on a test stand that shook with intense mechanical energy, spun a shimmering metallic propulsor, a device unprecedented in aeronautical engineering. 3 aluminum blades capable of modifying their pitch while rotating at an astonishing 2,400 revolutions per minute. The pivotal telephonic communication that would irrevocably alter the course of events had been received 3 days earlier from Boeing Field in Seattle. The Boeing Model 247, America's groundbreaking commercial aircraft, remained immobilized at Denver Municipal Airport, resembling a prized racehorse hobbled by injury. At an elevation of 5,280 feet, this twin-engine marvel, designed to transport passengers coast to coast in record time, found ascendance challenging across the formidable Rocky Mountains. 2 wooden propeller blades, rigidly set at a single pitch angle, optimized for one specific flight condition, effectively crippled its utility under varying operational circumstances. That very morning, Pan American Airways President Juan Trippe had issued a categorical demand to Boeing: fix it or were buying Douglas. The ramifications were immensely significant. United Airlines had 25 Model 247s contracted for acquisition, and TWA desired 30. Yet none of that held consequence if the globally preeminent aerial transport vessel proved incapable of traversing mountainous topography. Caldwell had encountered this familiar refrain previously. Throughout America's aviation community, the prevailing expert opinion resonated with almost scriptural authority, from hangar to boardroom. Variable pitch propellers were merely an answer without a corresponding quandary. They were considered excessively weighty in relation to any potential enhancement in capability, overly intricate for dependable functionality, and comprised too many precision machine moving parts operating in an unforgiving operational milieu, where lubricating oil froze at altitude and incessant vibration destroyed delicate mechanisms. The Army Air Corps Engineering Division had even officially classified Caldwell's hydraulic design as structurally and functionally deficient. Even Charles Lindbergh, aviation's most celebrated voice, had expressed reservations about the underlying principle during a private meeting at Wright Field the previous autumn. However, Caldwell possessed the unassuming self-assurance of an engineer who had been vindicated on previous occasions. Serving as the government's chief propeller engineer from 1917 to 1928, he had observed aeronautical specialists object to metal propellers on the grounds that wood was lighter, and had seen them oppose ground-adjustable props due to perceived unnecessary complexity. Each time, his empirical data had dismantled their preconceived notions. Each time, the sector ultimately conformed to the dictates of his empirical findings. This time, however, bore a distinct gravitas. This time, careers and companies were at stake. Hamilton Standard had committed substantial resources to Caldwell's groundbreaking innovation, supporting 800 jobs in East Hartford, in addition to manufacturing contracts that extended from Connecticut to California. The very company that had crafted propellers for Lindbergh's Spirit of St. Louis faced potential collapse if Caldwell's computations were invalidated. His own reputation, meticulously built over 25 years of propeller development, depended entirely upon 3 swiftly rotating blades and a hydraulic governor system that harnessed engine oil pressure to autonomously modify the pitch of the blades based on prevailing flight conditions. The underlying engineering was ingenious in its straightforwardness. During periods of takeoff and climb, when peak propulsive force was imperative, the propeller automatically transitioned to a shallow blade angle, akin to a car's low gear, thereby enabling the engine to spin faster and produce greater thrust. At cruising altitude, the system adjusted to a steeper blade angle for optimal velocity and economical fuel consumption. Should an engine fail, the propeller possessed the capability to align its blades longitudinally with the airstream, effectively nullifying aerodynamic resistance that would otherwise pull the aircraft into a catastrophic descent. The numbers articulated with irrefutable numerical precision. Caldwell's wind tunnel tests conducted at MIT had demonstrated conclusively that constant speed propellers could enhance the rate of ascent by 40%, elevate the operational altitude limit by 7,000 feet, and boost the economy of fuel consumption by 15% throughout the entire spectrum of flight conditions. Yet, these quantitative findings held no sway if the aviation industry persisted in their skepticism. The moment of triumph materialized on February 15, 1933, when United Airlines President Pat Patterson extended a conclusive opportunity to Hamilton Standard, a single test flight with their purported unfeasible propulsor integrated into a Boeing 247. Test pilot Eddie Allen, a former Navy aviator renowned for his unflappable resolve, was tasked with subjecting Caldwell's theory to the supreme trial over the very rocky mountain terrain that had rendered similar planes inoperable just 2 weeks prior. Allen ascended consistently beyond 6,000 feet, the altitude that had overwhelmed the capabilities of the rigid-pitch 247, then past 8,000 ton and subsequently 10,000 feet, traversing the formidable continental divide with effortless grace, as though it were a minor undulation on a country road. The constant speed propeller autonomously calibrated itself to each change in altitude, preserving ideal engine revolutions per minute while optimizing propulsive force. Where the fixed-pitch aircraft had contended arduously to attain 6,000 feet over Denver, the modified 247 achieved an impressive operational altitude limit of 20,700 feet. The enhancement in cruise speed was similarly profound, 15 mph faster across all altitudes, accompanied by 12% enhanced fuel economy at normal cruise power settings. The evening brought momentous news to Patterson via a telegraphic dispatch. Constant speed propeller exceeds all performance claims. Recommend immediate adoption for entire United Fleet. As a torrent of orders began to inundate Hamilton Standard's bustling East Hartford facility, a starker, more ominous reality was simultaneously unfolding on the global stage. In the heart of Europe, the Nazi Party had forcefully seized governmental power, consolidating its authoritarian grip. Concurrently, across the Pacific, Japan's military strategists were openly articulating their expansionist ambitions. Indeed, the dark specter of conflict was visibly coalescing over both Europe and Asia, and this groundbreaking propeller technology, initially conceived to enhance the comfort of airline passengers, was poised to transform into a crucial and clandestine asset for American military might. On a warm, humid May day in 1933, the telephone in Caldwell's office unexpectedly rang, signaling a pivotal moment. The voice on the other end introduced himself as Commander John Towers, representing the Navy Department's prestigious Bureau of Aeronautics. Their pressing agenda revolved around the urgent need to discuss next-generation fighter aircraft, exceptionally rapid interceptors capable of decisively outclimbing and outmaneuvering any aerial threats that Germany or Japan might be developing. Furthermore, they sought advanced bombers that could ascend to altitudes and achieve speeds beyond the reach of contemporary enemy interceptor capabilities. It was clear that the era of sophisticated aerial combat was inexorably dawning, and Frank Caldwell, with his innovative designs, possessed the critical intellectual property that would ultimately unlock America's potential for undisputed air superiority. A validating telegram reached Hamilton Standard on the auspicious date of November 13, 1933, carrying news that would unequivocally affirm every principle Frank Caldwell had tirelessly striven to demonstrate. The esteemed National Aeronautic Association publicly declared that Hamilton Standard Propeller Corporation had been awarded the Collier Trophy, widely recognized as aviation's most prestigious accolade, specifically for the development of a controllable pitch propeller, with particular credit to Frank W. Caldwell. This monumental achievement would culminate in a personal commendation from President Franklin Roosevelt himself at a distinguished White House ceremony scheduled for December. We invite you to stay with us and watch the end of the video. We will be grateful for your like and subscription. Please leave a comment below about where you are from and what you think about the video topic. Yet, even as flashbulbs illuminated Caldwell's handshake with the president, capturing a moment of national recognition, the broader aviation establishment maintained a posture of stubborn skepticism. Within the operational confines of Wright Field in Dayton, Ohio, Army test pilots vocalized their profound dissatisfaction, lamenting the perceived excessive complexity that constant-speed propellers introduced into the demanding environment of combat aircraft. Major Benjamin Kelsey, serving as the insightful chief of the Army Air Corps Fighter Projects Office, articulated the pervasive concerns that resonated throughout military hangars nationwide with a pointed question: what happens when that hydraulic system fails over Germany? When oil pressure drops and the propeller locks up, fixed-pitch props don't break down because there's nothing to break. This sentiment underscored a deep-seated apprehension regarding the reliability of new, intricate technologies in life-or-death situations. Caldwell's response to this mounting skepticism was, as always, characterized by its meticulous and methodical nature. If the military aviators unequivocally demanded concrete proof of reliability under the most arduous combat conditions, he was resolute in his commitment to furnish them with empirical data that would unequivocally dispel any lingering doubts. Dedicating himself to grueling 18-hour workdays within Hamilton Standard's significantly expanded test facility, he conceptualized and implemented what would become famously known as the whirl test. This innovative procedure involved mounting propellers on robust, fixed stands to meticulously measure critical parameters such as thrust output, operational endurance, rotational speed, and inherent structural strength. These evaluations were conducted under deliberately extreme conditions, designed to far surpass any stresses or challenges an aircraft would conceivably encounter during actual combat engagements. The underlying technical innovation that rendered all these advancements feasible was remarkable for its inherent mechanical elegance and conceptual simplicity. Caldwell's ingenious hydromatic propeller system ingeniously harnessed the engine's own oil pressure to actuate a piston, which in turn precisely altered the blade angle through a sophisticated yet compact arrangement of gears and counterweights. A finely calibrated centrifugal governor, an intricate device no larger than an ordinary coffee can, was responsible for steadfastly maintaining a constant engine RPM, irrespective of the myriad and fluctuating flight conditions, by automatically and seamlessly adjusting the propeller's blade pitch. When an aircraft ascended and the atmospheric air density naturally diminished, the propeller intuitively shifted to a fine pitch setting, conceptually analogous to an automobile engaging a lower gear, thereby preserving engine RPM and optimizing power output. Conversely, during steady cruise flight, the system transitioned to a coarse pitch, ensuring maximum forward speed and superior fuel efficiency. Furthermore, should the engine RPM surge excessively during a steep dive, the propeller would automatically coarsen its pitch, effectively preventing potentially catastrophic overspeed damage. Perhaps the most groundbreaking and life-saving innovation was the feathering capability. In the dire event of a complete engine failure, the judicious application of oil pressure derived from the aircraft's remaining operational engines, could precisely rotate the blades of the defunct propeller into a position parallel to the oncoming airflow. This critical maneuver effectively eliminated the immense asymmetrical drag that would otherwise inevitably pull a multi-engine aircraft into an uncontrolled, spiraling descent. For the brave bomber crews undertaking perilous missions deep within hostile enemy territory, this singular, ingenious feature frequently represented the crucial demarcation between successfully limping back to base on their remaining engines and tragically becoming yet another grim statistic among the countless losses of wartime. When these advancements were rigorously translated into tangible combat capabilities, the resulting performance improvements were utterly undeniable. A P-51 Mustang fighter, outfitted with Caldwell's innovative constant-speed propeller, demonstrated profoundly dramatic differences across every conceivable flight regime when compared directly against an identical aircraft utilizing conventional fixed-pitch blades. For instance, its takeoff distance was remarkably reduced by 30%, a critical advantage that enabled fighters to rapidly scramble from shorter, more forward-deployed airfields situated closer to the active front lines. The rate of climb surged by an impressive 40%, effectively shaving precious minutes from the time required to achieve optimal intercept altitudes. Furthermore, the aircraft's service ceiling dramatically increased by a staggering 7,000 feet, granting American fighters a decisive altitude superiority over their enemy counterparts. Beyond these aerial performance gains, the combat range was extended by an additional 200 miles, and overall fuel efficiency saw a significant improvement of 15% across all operational power settings, offering unprecedented strategic advantages. However, the impressive figures meticulously documented in test reports held little significance if the propellers were to fail precisely when pilots' lives depended most critically upon their flawless operation. Caldwell's profound obsession with achieving unparalleled reliability served as the driving force compelling him to subject every single component to rigorous testing far beyond its theoretical design limits. Propeller blades, for example, were routinely subjected to immense loads that were 50% higher than the maximum stresses anticipated, even under the most extreme combat scenarios. The intricate hydraulic governors were compelled to operate continuously for an exhaustive 500 hours, enduring brutal temperature extremes ranging from a frigid 40 degrees below zero to a scorching 160 degrees Fahrenheit. Even the vital oil seals underwent exhaustive testing with various contaminants, meticulously simulating both combat damage and the detrimental effects of neglected maintenance. As Hamilton Standard's order books rapidly swelled with lucrative military contracts, the entrenched resistance from established aviation manufacturers grew increasingly vocal and aggressive. Manufacturers specializing in fixed-pitch propellers, which equipped the majority of the Army Air Corps' fighter fleet, launched an intense lobbying campaign. Their central argument posited that constant-speed propellers represented an unnecessary complication that would ultimately cost American pilots their lives. Their chief engineer went so far as to publish a series of technical papers pointedly questioning the operational reliability of hydraulic systems at high combat altitudes, where ambient temperatures plummeted to a chilling 60 degrees below zero and oil viscosity dramatically increased, posing significant engineering challenges. Caldwell, ever the pragmatist, responded to these challenges not with rhetoric, but with an overwhelming deluge of further empirical data. His meticulously conducted cold weather tests, performed at the demanding altitude of 35,000 feet, unequivocally demonstrated that the hydromatic system, contrary to popular belief, actually performed with enhanced efficiency at high altitude. This unexpected benefit was attributed to the increased viscosity of the thicker oil, which provided a more positive and precise pressure control mechanism. Furthermore, extensive vibration tests revealed a crucial advantage. Constant speed propellers experienced significantly fewer mechanical failures compared to their fixed-pitch counterparts. This superior durability stemmed from the automatic pitch adjustment mechanism, which effectively eliminated the destructive resonance frequencies that were known to cause catastrophic cracking in propeller hubs and dangerous loosening of mounting bolts in traditional designs. The pivotal moment arrived during a compelling demonstration conducted at Selfridge Field in Michigan on March 21, 1934, marking a significant turning point in aviation technology. On that memorable day, two virtually identical P-26 fighter aircraft ascended into the sky concurrently. One was equipped with the conventional rudimentary fixed-pitch propeller system, while its counterpart incorporated Frank Caldwell's revolutionary constant-speed propeller mechanism. The disparity in their aerial performance was so remarkably pronounced and astonishing that the veteran pilots observing the trials initially harbored suspicions, believing the aircraft outfitted with the constant speed system must have been powered by a far more potent engine. However, the data spoke for itself with irrefutable clarity. The time required to climb to an altitude of 10,000 feet was a protracted 8 minutes and 30 seconds for the fighter utilizing the fixed-pitch propeller, dramatically contrasted by a mere 5 minutes and 40 seconds for the constant-speed variant. Furthermore, at an elevation of 15,000 feet, the maximum attainable speed for the fixed-pitch aircraft stagnated at 187 mph, whereas its technologically superior counterpart achieved a brisk 203 mph. The operational ceiling, a critical metric for combat effectiveness, also showed a staggering difference, with the former reaching 28,000 feet and the latter soaring to an impressive 34,500 feet. Lieutenant Colonel Carl Spaatz, a distinguished military figure who would later assume the paramount command of all American strategic air forces operating in the European theater, meticulously documented his observations and conclusions in a comprehensive report that very evening. His unequivocal recommendation called for the immediate and universal integration of constant-speed propellers across the entire fleet of Army Air Corps fighters and bombers. In his compelling narrative, he articulated that the performance advantage bestowed by this innovation is so profoundly significant that it fundamentally alters the very landscape of combat capability. He further asserted with prescient foresight that any Air Force equipped with constant-speed propellers will undeniably possess a decisive and insurmountable superiority over adversaries still reliant on antiquated fixed-pitch systems, thereby forecasting a new era of aerial dominance. As the year 1934 drew to its close, the manufacturing facilities of Hamilton Standard found themselves operating ceaselessly around the clock, striving to fulfill the burgeoning influx of orders emanating from the Army, the Navy, and a growing number of civilian airlines, all eager to embrace this transformative technology. Yet, simultaneously, across the vast expanse of the Atlantic Ocean, a series of ominous and foreboding events began to unfold, events that would ultimately subject Caldwell's groundbreaking innovation to trials and tribulations under exigencies that no engineer in peacetime could ever have conceived. While Frank Caldwell meticulously honed and refined his advanced propeller designs in the quiet diligence of Connecticut, European aircraft manufacturers, burdened by conservatism and a lack of foresight, lagged perilously behind the rapid pace of American technological advancement. Stay with us and watch the end of the video. We will be grateful for your like and subscription. Please write a comment about where you are from and what you think about the video topic. Within the expansive and bustling factories situated on the periphery of Augsburg, Germany's most technologically sophisticated fighter aircraft, the formidable Bf-109, regrettably still incorporated manually adjustable propellers. This design flaw necessitated that its pilots engage in a constant and distracting manipulation of pitch levers throughout the intense and demanding conditions of aerial combat. Similarly, the iconic British Supermarine Spitfires and Hawker Hurricanes were equipped with rudimentary two-position propellers, which offered only a coarse pitch setting suitable for high-speed flight or a fine pitch configuration optimized for climbing maneuvers. Crucially, these systems lacked any intermediate settings whatsoever, and, more critically, possessed no inherent automatic adjustment capabilities, placing their pilots at a significant disadvantage. The dire and lethal ramifications of this glaring technological disparity became painfully evident during the initial tumultuous months of the war. Combat reports meticulously compiled by the Royal Air Force, RAF, in September 1939, painted an exceedingly grim and disquieting tableau, a reality that undoubtedly deprived Air Ministry officials of much-needed slumber. German Bf-109s consistently demonstrated their superior ability to outclimb their British counterparts, particularly above the critical altitude of 15,000 feet, where their manually adjustable propellers, despite their operational burdens, afforded Luftwaffe pilots a crucial and often decisive tactical advantage. Furthermore, RAF bomber crews frequently reported the agonizing necessity of aborting their missions, their aircraft simply incapable of attaining sufficient altitude to safely clear the imposing Alps or effectively evade the relentless pursuit of German interceptors. Fighter command pilots, in their desperate attempts to engage enemy aircraft, squandered precious seconds during their climbs to intercept altitude, moments that frequently dictated the critical difference between successfully engaging hostile bombers before they could unleash their deadly payloads on targets, or watching helplessly as German formations vanished into the protective cover of the clouds. Air Marshal Hugh Dowding, the meticulously analytical Scotsman who held the weighty responsibility of commanding Fighter Command, privately harbored profound concerns that Britain's frontline fighters were intrinsically outmatched on a technological front, a disadvantage that loomed ominously over the impending monumental battle for air superiority. Intelligence dispatches arriving from France meticulously detailed how German pilots possessed the capability to continuously optimize their aircraft's performance throughout the entirety of an engagement, adapting to changing conditions with fluid precision. In stark contrast, RAF pilots were forced to grapple with cumbersome manual pitch controls that imperatively demanded their constant and undivided attention during the very precise moments when their focus should have remained exclusively on the menacing presence of enemy aircraft. At the prestigious 1938 Society of Automotive Engineers conference held in Detroit, Caldwell presented a compelling array of data that, in hindsight, should have unequivocally alarmed every single military aviation expert in attendance. His exhaustive comparative analysis, pitting constant speed performance against fixed-pitch systems while employing identical engines, unveiled numerical figures that verged on the revolutionary. The static thrust, representing the raw power accessible for takeoff and the crucial initial climb, registered a remarkable 40% increase when automatic pitch control was utilized. The rate of climb, particularly below an altitude of 10,000 feet, experienced a substantial boost of 35%. Concurrently, fuel consumption at optimal cruise altitude saw an impressive reduction of 15%. Most significantly, the combat ceiling, a paramount factor in aerial engagements, was elevated by an astonishing margin of over 6,000 feet, thereby bestowing properly equipped fighters with an undeniable and decisive altitude advantage over their adversaries. Despite this groundbreaking evidence, European aviation engineers largely dismissed these compelling figures as mere theoretical advantages, arguing they were offset by practical disadvantages that, in their view, will prove fatal in combat conditions. Dr. Ernst Haenkel, a distinguished designer responsible for some of Germany's fastest fighters and bombers, publicly articulated his skepticism, contending that hydraulic propeller systems constituted American over-engineering that sacrifices reliability for marginal performance gains. British propeller manufacturers echoed these sentiments, steadfastly insisting that manually controlled pitch mechanisms provided pilots with a more precise and nuanced level of control during the intricate maneuvers of combat. The formidable production challenge confronting Hamilton Standard intensified with each passing month as military orders surged and multiplied exponentially. Each individual constant-speed propeller mandated the precision machining of 47 distinct components, manufactured to exacting tolerances measured in mere thousandths of an inch, and required intricate assembly procedures that demanded the expertise of highly skilled craftsmen utilizing specialized tools. The company's East Hartford factory underwent a significant expansion, eventually operating 3 shifts per day, 7 days a week, in a relentless effort to meet demand. However, despite these Herculean efforts, demand consistently outstripped capacity as the Army Air Corps, the Navy, and various Allied purchasing commissions fiercely competed for the limited available production. Quality control, a critical aspect of manufacturing, rapidly evolved into both Caldwell's unwavering obsession and his most persistent nightmare. A singular batch of defective governors, which were the essential components responsible for regulating oil pressure and meticulously controlling blade pitch, led to the catastrophic loss of hydraulic pressure in 3 propellers during rigorous test flights conducted at Wright Field. These alarming failures occurred precisely during simulated combat maneuvers, under the very conditions where absolute reliability was of paramount importance. Consequently, Army Air Corps procurement officers issued a stern threat to cancel pending orders valued at a substantial $12 million. Critics throughout the aviation industry promptly seized upon these incidents, citing them as irrefutable proof that constant-speed propellers were excessively complex for the unforgiving realities of combat, where the maxim simplicity equals survival was held as an inviolable truth. Caldwell's subsequent response unequivocally demonstrated the methodical and unyielding determination that had been the driving force throughout his illustrious career. Collaborating tirelessly with a dedicated team comprising Hamilton Standard's most brilliant engineers, he embarked on a complete redesign of the governor system, accomplishing this monumental task in a mere 6 weeks. This comprehensive overhaul incorporated redundant pressure circuits and ingeniously integrated backup mechanical controls, features designed to ensure the basic propeller function would be maintained even in the catastrophic event of a complete failure of the primary hydraulic system. Furthermore, new, more rigorous testing protocols were instituted, subjecting every propeller to stress levels that exceeded anticipated combat conditions by an extraordinary 50%. Most significantly, Caldwell personally instituted a groundbreaking policy of individually inspecting and personally signing off on every single propeller destined for military customers, thereby instilling a new standard of personal accountability and unwavering commitment to quality. Reliability enhancements for critical military clientele emerged at an absolutely pivotal juncture. By the nascent months of 1939, the aerial might of the Luftwaffe had burgeoned to a formidable force exceeding 4,000 aircraft, a stark contrast to RAF Fighter Command's comparatively meager fleet of fewer than 700 operational combat planes. Concurrently, German aeronautical manufacturing was undergoing a dramatic acceleration, with newly established facilities churning out sophisticated designs such as the formidable Bf-109E variant and the potent twin-engine Bf-110 destroyer. Intelligence assessments consistently indicated that German heavy bombers possessed the operational range and elevated service ceiling necessary to strike any strategic target within the British Isles, while the Royal Air Force's interceptors frequently found themselves struggling to engage high-flying enemy formations effectively. The profound technological chasm separating the two air forces manifested with tragic clarity during the intense aerial engagements of the Battle of France. Squadrons of RAF Hurricanes and Spitfires, then equipped with rudimentary two-position propellers, consistently experienced being outmaneuvered and outclimbed by their German adversaries at altitudes exceeding 20,000 feet. Flight Lieutenant Douglas Bader, a distinguished commander of 242 Squadron, vividly recounted the perilous situation, stating that German aircraft climb away from us at will above 15,000 feet. Our propellers simply cannot provide the power needed for sustained high-altitude combat. Consequently, squadron losses mounted relentlessly as RAF pilots grimly realized that their aircraft's operational performance envelope was catastrophically insufficient against an enemy that held the decisive advantage of choosing the time and place for engagement. By June 1940, with the relentless advance of German ground forces towards the Channel coast and the Luftwaffe's ominous preparations for a full-scale aerial assault on Britain, Fighter Command found itself engulfed in a technological crisis that imperiled the very outcome of the impending global conflict. The very constant speed propellers, lauded as revolutionary by discerning American test pilots, remained conspicuously absent from the majority of RAF squadrons. Their delayed adoption was largely attributable to an intractable combination of bureaucratic sluggishness and entrenched industrial resistance to innovation. Squadron leader Desmond Cook, leading 65 squadrons stationed at Hornchurch, possessed a profound understanding, perhaps more so than many, of the dire challenges confronting his pilots in the imminent battle. Having personally engaged German fighters over the skies of France in his Spitfire, he recognized unequivocally that the RAF's performance deficiencies stemmed not from any lack of pilot skill or fundamental aircraft design flaws. Rather, they represented critical engineering problems demanding precise engineering solutions. As formidable Luftwaffe formations began to mass menacingly across the Channel, poised for Operation Eagle attack, Cook began to formulate an urgent and unconventional request that would critically test whether the labyrinthine British bureaucracy could adapt with sufficient speed to rescue fighter command from the brink of technological obsolescence. Before we delve deeper into this critical period and the decisive actions taken, we invite you to stay with us for the remainder of this compelling narrative. Your support, signified by a like and subscription, is invaluable to us. We also encourage you to share your thoughts on this historical topic in the comments below, letting us know where you are watching from and your perspective on these pivotal events. Squadron Leader Desmond Cook stood with a palpable sense of apprehension within the austere operations room at RAF Hornchurch on June 10, 1940. He meticulously scrutinized a series of freshly arrived intelligence photographs that grimly substantiated his most profound anxieties. The images depicted vast Luftwaffe formations consolidating their strength at numerous airfields across northern France, menacing Stukas, formidable Heinkels, ubiquitous Dornier, and the dreaded Messerschmitt escorts. The very aircraft that had so decisively dominated the aerial theater over France. It was clear that within mere weeks, perhaps even days, they would descend upon Britain, and fighter command would be compelled to confront them with aircraft that ascended too sluggishly and simply could not attain the crucial altitudes where the decisive air battles would ultimately be won or irrevocably lost. Cook himself had flown Spitfires during the desperate evacuation from Dunkirk, experiencing firsthand the chilling helplessness of watching German fighters effortlessly climb away from his squadron's aircraft at will once they ascended above 20,000 feet. The underlying mathematical reality was brutally simple and stark. His Spitfire required a protracted 11 minutes and 8 seconds to reach an altitude of 20,000 feet, whereas the agile Messerschmitt Bf-109s could achieve the identical height in under 9 minutes. In the unforgiving crucible of aerial combat, that seemingly marginal difference of 2.5 minutes represented the critical distinction between intercepting enemy bombers before they could unleash their destructive payloads upon their intended targets and arriving tragically too late to avert widespread devastation. The crucial engineering solution, a marvel of contemporary aeronautical design, already existed within American manufacturing plants. However, the ponderous machinery of British bureaucracy advanced with the agonizing slowness of a glacier, even as German invasion preparations intensified and accelerated with each passing day. Impelled by the extreme urgency of the situation, Cook boldly circumvented established protocols and placed a direct telephone call to de Havilland Propellers, the designated British licensee for Hamilton Standard's revolutionary constant-speed propeller designs. His request was articulated with both urgency and precise specificity. An immediate retrofit of his squadron's Spitfires with the American-designed propellers, an imperative action to be undertaken entirely irrespective of formal official approval or the usual procedural strictures. Astonishingly, the ambitious conversion program was initiated within a mere 48 hours, operating under an extraordinary emergency authorization personally granted by Air Marshal Dowding himself. De Havilland engineers demonstrating remarkable dedication, labored tirelessly around the clock, requisitioning available hangars at Hatfield to undertake the complex modification of Spitfire make-is. These venerable aircraft were transformed from their outdated two-position propellers to cutting-edge, fully automatic constant-speed systems. Each individual conversion demanded a rigorous 8 hours of meticulous precision work, encompassing the delicate removal of the old propeller hub, the intricate installation of new hydraulic lines, the precise calibration of the governor system, and exhaustive ground tests to guarantee flawless operation. Fighter Command, already stretched thin, could only afford to spare aircraft for brief 24-hour intervals, thereby creating a profound logistical conundrum where squadrons were compelled to operate at significantly reduced strength while their vital aircraft underwent these emergency modifications. The inaugural converted Spitfire triumphantly emerged from the Hatfield hangar on June 15, 1940, a mere 5 days after Cook's urgent plea. Cook himself personally undertook the critical initial test flight, gracefully lifting off from the verdant grass airfield in the aircraft bearing serial number K9847. The immediate and profound improvement was strikingly evident even during the initial takeoff roll. The newly installed propeller, automatically adjusted to a fine pitch setting, thereby enabling the powerful Merlin engine to develop its maximum thrust while simultaneously maintaining optimal revolutions per minute. Whereas his previous unmodified aircraft had typically required a lengthy 320 yards to achieve airborne status, the newly modified Spitfire lifted off effortlessly in a remarkable 225 yards, a significant reduction in takeoff distance. However, the truly staggering revelation occurred during the subsequent climb test. Cook advanced the throttle to maximum continuous power and commenced his ascent towards the critical altitude of 20,000 feet, the very height at which Fighter Command anticipated engaging the formidable German bomber formations. The constant speed propeller meticulously adjusted its blade angle continuously as the atmospheric density progressively diminished, thereby maintaining the engine's optimal RPM, while automatically optimizing the blade angle for maximum propulsive thrust. At 5,000 feet, then 10,000, and again at 15,000 feet, the Spitfire ascended with an authoritative power and responsiveness that Cook, despite his 3 years of extensive experience flying the type, had never before encountered. It achieved the crucial altitude of 20,000 feet in an astonishing 7 minutes and 42 seconds, a full 4 minutes faster than his previous best time, recorded in an identical, unmodified aircraft. Undeterred, Cook continued his ascent, his eyes fixed on the altimeter as it registered heights that would have been utterly unattainable with the aircraft's previous propeller configuration. 35,000 feet, then 37,000 feet. Finally, at a breathtaking 39,000 feet, where the ambient air was so exceptionally thin that his breath visibly frosted inside the cockpit, despite the summer temperatures prevailing at ground level, the Spitfire ultimately attained its maximum performance ceiling. The tactical ramifications of this dramatic improvement were nothing short of staggering. Fighter Command had been meticulously planning its defensive strategies based on aircraft that previously struggled immensely to reach 32,000 feet and typically required over 11 minutes to climb to intercept altitude. Suddenly, with these modifications, RAF fighters possessed the unprecedented capability to operate a full 7,000 feet higher and reach their crucial fighting altitude in just 2/3 of the time. German bomber formations, typically cruising at 25,000 feet and previously considered relatively safe from effective interception, now faced the terrifying prospect of Spitfires attacking them from a superior altitude, wielding an overwhelming energy advantage. An energy advantage became paramount in the aerial battles of the Second World War. Upon his landing at Hornchurch, Cook immediately established communication with Fighter Command Headquarters. His dispatch was succinct yet urgent, proclaiming that the Spitfire is now an airplane, and requesting the immediate conversion of the entire squadron. Within a mere 72 hours, all 12 operational Spitfires belonging to 65 Squadron had been outfitted with constant speed propellers. The reaction among the pilots spanned from utter astonishment to profound disbelief, as they experienced an aircraft performance level previously unimaginable. Flight Lieutenant Brian Lane, a seasoned veteran of the French campaign, meticulously documented this profound metamorphosis in his combat diary, stating, "It's as if someone replaced our engines with twice the power. We can climb with the 109s now, match them altitude for altitude. For the first time since this war began, we're not fighting at a disadvantage." Concurrently, similar retrofitting initiatives commenced with immediate effect across the entirety of Fighter Command. De Havilland engineers dedicated themselves to arduous 18-hour shifts, working relentlessly to equip both Spitfires and Hurricanes before the anticipated German aerial offensive could fully materialize. Consequently, the critical numbers of upgraded aircraft, destined to play a pivotal role in safeguarding Britain, were rapidly becoming a tangible reality across numerous Fighter Command airfields. By September 1940, a staggering 90% of the Royal Air Force's fighter aircraft were equipped with constant speed propellers. Combat reports from the initial phases of the Battle of Britain vividly underscored the dramatic enhancement in tactical capabilities. The RAF's newfound advantage in climb rate enabled Fighter Command to reach intercept altitude 2 to 3 minutes faster than German intelligence estimates had predicted. Furthermore, a superior service ceiling extending some 4,000 feet above German fighters meant that Spitfires could initiate attacks from advantageous positions where Messerschmitt pilots found it exceedingly difficult to mount an effective counter-response. Most significantly, the improved fuel efficiency afforded by these propellers extended patrol times by an additional 45 minutes, allowing RAF squadrons to maintain persistent standing patrols along crucial German approach routes. We invite you to stay with us and watch the end of the video. We will be grateful for your like and subscription. Please leave a comment below about where you are from and what you think about the video topic. The strategic ramifications of these advancements transcended the mere individual performance of aircraft. Air Chief Marshal Dowding's comprehensive defensive system hinged upon the efficacy of radar, early warning, and a rapid scramble response designed to intercept German formations well before they could reach their designated targets. Every precious minute saved during the ascent to altitude exponentially multiplied the operational effectiveness of Fighter Command's inherently limited resources. Pilots who, throughout the summer of 1939, had been compelled to watch German aircraft escape to higher altitudes, now found themselves in a position of tactical choice, able to dictate precisely when and where to engage the enemy. Perhaps the most palpable transformation was evident in the significant reduction of pilot workload. Constant speed propellers completely obviated the necessity for manual pitch adjustments during the intensity of combat, thereby liberating pilots to concentrate their entire focus on intricate tactics and precise gunnery, rather than being preoccupied with engine management. In stark contrast, German pilots, still grappling with manually controlled propellers, found themselves at a severe operational disadvantage when RAF fighters appeared above them, possessing an altitude and energy superiority that British aircraft had never previously commanded. As formidable Luftwaffe formations began to amass across the English Channel, poised for the ultimate assault on Britain, Fighter Command patiently awaited, equipped with aircraft that bore only a faint resemblance to the fighters that had struggled over France just a few months prior. Frank Caldwell's seemingly impossible propeller innovation had bestowed upon the RAF the critical performance margin that would ultimately determine whether Britain would endure or succumb to German invasion. America's subsequent entry into the global conflict following the attack on Pearl Harbor dramatically transformed Hamilton Standard from a specialized component manufacturer into the indispensable linchpin of Allied air supremacy. Every iconic B-17 Flying Fortress, B-24 Liberator, P-51 Mustang, P-47 Thunderbolt, and P-38 Lightning absolutely required Caldwell's meticulously engineered propellers to fully realize their formidable combat potential. The sheer scale of production demands was staggering, far surpassing anything peacetime industry had ever conceived. By 1942, Hamilton Standard's order books revealed contracts for an astonishing 530,135 propeller assemblies, a quantity sufficient to equip every single combat aircraft in the American arsenal, and simultaneously provide ample spares for continuous operations across multiple theaters of war. The East Hartford factory, which had employed a modest 800 workers in 1932, now sprawled across numerous sites, boasting a workforce of 22,000 employees operating 3 shifts around the clock. Manufacturing partnerships expanded to include industrial giants such as Frigidaire, Nash Kelvinator, and Remington Rand, as automobile and appliance companies meticulously retooled their assembly lines specifically for aircraft propeller production. Peak monthly output soared to 12,000 complete propeller assemblies, each demanding precision machining that necessitated tolerances measured in mere thousandths of an inch. However, this unprecedented push for mass production inadvertently spawned unforeseen quality control challenges that haunted Caldwell's nights and consumed his days. Failure rates began to escalate as an influx of inexperienced workers struggled to master complex assembly procedures. Statistical analysis subsequently unearthed a disturbing pattern. Propellers manufactured during periods of peak production exhibited noticeably higher malfunction rates compared to units meticulously crafted during the more deliberate pre-war era, when skilled craftsmen personally inspected every single component. The crisis reached its most tragic zenith. Over the heavily industrialized city of Schweinfurt on October 14, 1943, B-17 serial number 42-31041, affectionately nicknamed Hell's Angels by its courageous crew, was desperately fighting to regain altitude after a devastating flak burst had severely damaged its number 3 engine over the target area. The feathering mechanism, specifically engineered to eliminate aerodynamic drag by rotating failed engine propellers parallel to the airstream, engaged normally, enabling the bomber to maintain formation during the critical bomb run. Yet, during the subsequent climb to escape altitude, a critical manufacturing defect within the hydraulic governor caused the feathered propeller to slowly rotate back into the airstream, generating immense drag that inexorably pulled the B-17 into an uncontrollable dive. 9 brave airmen tragically perished when Hell's Angels ultimately crashed into a Bavarian forest. The subsequent and exhaustive investigation meticulously traced the catastrophic failure to contaminated hydraulic fluid that had frozen solid at an altitude of 30,000 feet, thereby preventing the governor's intricate system from effectively maintaining the correct blade position. Quality control inspectors subsequently discovered identical contamination in a significant number of 47 other propellers from the very same production batch, all of which had been shipped to 8th Air Force squadrons operating from their English bases. Frank Caldwell, now 54 years of age and bearing the immense weight of industrial responsibility that no peacetime engineer could ever have possibly imagined, personally assumed accountability for the devastating failure. He undertook a solemn journey to England aboard a War Department transport, meeting directly with bomber crews at various bases across East Anglia to gain a first-hand understanding of precisely how his propellers performed under the brutal conditions of combat. These conversations were brutally honest and unflinching. Technical Sergeant Michael Romano, a flight engineer serving on a B-24 crew, vividly recounted propeller failures that had tragically cost his squadron 3 aircraft within a mere 2 weeks. Romano starkly stated, "The feathering system works fine in training flights over Kansas, but over Germany, with flak fragments and battle damage, these complex systems fail when we need them most." Upon his return to Connecticut, Caldwell swiftly undertook a comprehensive overhaul of the propeller's feathering mechanism. His ingenious redesign integrated duplicate hydraulic circuits and robust contingency mechanical systems, ensuring that blade position could be precisely maintained, even in the event of a total incapacitation of the primary controls. Furthermore, new, rigorous quality control protocols were established, subjecting each individual propeller to a battery of environmental tests meticulously crafted to replicate the brutal realities of aerial warfare. These trials included extreme temperature cycling, ranging from a frigid 60 degrees below zero to a searing 140 degrees above Fahrenheit, as well as vibration testing that surpassed the typical stresses encountered in battle by a remarkable 75% margin. Contamination trials were also conducted, utilizing hydraulic fluid intentionally tainted with metal particles, ice crystals, and various chemical residues, all designed to simulate the foreign matter that might gradually build up over prolonged periods of active engagement. By the year 1943, these significant advancements in reliability had culminated in the development of unquestionably the most robust and trustworthy propeller system in the annals of aeronautical engineering. Detailed analyses of operational losses from the European theater unequivocally demonstrated that propeller-related malfunctions had plummeted to a mere fraction, registering below 1% of the aggregate of all mechanical problems, a rate notably lower than that of engine failures, landing gear malfunctions, or electrical system breakdowns. The feathering system, which had initially been a source of considerable vexation, now habitually preserved both aircraft and their invaluable crews. 8th Air Force operational records meticulously chronicled scores upon scores of bombers that made successful, uneventful returns to England after losing one or more engines over German territory, their constant speed propellers automatically feathering to nullify aerodynamic resistance and facilitate sustained aerial transit on the remaining operational engines. We ask you to stay with us and watch the end of the video. We will be grateful for your like and subscription. Please leave a comment below about where you are from and what you think about the video topic. The profound strategic ramifications of these innovations materialized starkly when American aircraft began engaging in direct confrontation with German and Japanese fighters in widespread aerial engagements. P-51 Mustangs, equipped with Caldwell's refined propellers, exhibited overwhelming and critical performance superiority over Messerschmitt Bf-109K models, boasting a 30 MPH advantage in velocity and an elevated operational altitude of 5,000 feet. This crucial edge empowered Allied airmen to dictate the terms and locale of their aerial contests. Similarly, B-17 flying fortresses could cruise 50 MPH faster than their German counterparts of similar design, while simultaneously operating at altitudes 8,000 feet higher, positioning them well outside the effective operational reach of most Luftwaffe interceptors. The Pacific Theater in particular unveiled an even more pronounced and impactful array of benefits. P-47 Thunderbolts, initially regarded with skepticism due to their substantial mass and perceived unsuitability for fighter combat, registered a remarkable 40% enhancement in their rate of ascent compared to Japanese Zero fighters when outfitted with these advanced constant speed propellers. The sophisticated automatic pitch adjustment mechanism enabled American pilots to sustain peak engine efficiency during the swift and often violent shifts in elevation that defined aerial engagements across the vast Pacific. In stark contrast, Japanese pilots contended with cumbersome manual propeller adjustments, which necessitated an unwavering degree of pilot focus at the very junctures when undivided concentration on their adversaries was paramount. General Carl Spaatz, commanding U.S. strategic air forces in Europe, encapsulated this profound technological revolution in a classified communiqué to the Pentagon, declaring, "The constant speed propeller has given American aircraft unquestionable and overwhelming operational superiority in each and every operational zone where our forces are deployed. It is of comparable strategic significance to radar, long-range navigation, or any other single technology we possess." Comprehensive statistical assessments undertaken by the Army Air Forces in 1945 unequivocally demonstrated that constant speed propellers had directly obviated the loss of an estimated 15,000 Allied aircraft. This remarkable achievement was attributed to several key factors: enhanced climbing capabilities facilitating evasion from enemy fighters, elevated operational ceilings permitting flight trajectories beyond the reach of enemy interceptors, the crucial feathering functionality that ensured secure recovery following engine incapacitation, and superior fuel economy, which significantly curtailed emergency landings precipitated by fuel depletion. Frank Caldwell's ingenious impossible propeller, initially scorned by aeronautical pundits for its perceived intricacy and unsuitability for combat operations, ultimately demonstrated superior dependability amidst the rigors of battle than the less sophisticated fixed-pitch configurations it superseded. The very technology that skeptics had contended would jeopardize American servicemen's lives had, on the contrary, become instrumental in preserving countless thousands of aviators, while simultaneously furnishing the critical operational advantages that ultimately paved the way for an Allied triumph.